All right, hey everyone, Waterbots here, and welcome to Democratic Socialism Simulator. This is probably going to be one of those games where I get more upfront about my personal beliefs, and honestly, if I don't know, if I was gonna say if I'm lucky, but that's not right.
Hunter, I think you need to start over.
Yeah. Hey everyone, Wonderbots here, and welcome to Democratic Socialism Simulator, the game where I'm probably going to make a fool of myself by speaking about my beliefs, but that's okay, because I think that's important all the same.
Wander.
What?
Start that again.
Never!
That is not how you introduce this game.
You introduce this game, then.
Hello everyone, Wanderbots here, and we are about to play Democratic Socialism Simulator. Wander recently acquired it with the Humble Bundle that was...
Nope.
Wander, then you know where you got it. You know. So let's start
Take
this.
four's the charm. First, fifth, take, go. Hey everyone, Wonderbots here, and welcome to Democratic Socialism Simulator as part of the Super Indie Game Lightning Round and the... I was gonna say Democratic Bundle.
No. So
Alright, take six, roll the intro again.
Hey everyone, Wonderbots here, and welcome to the Democratic Socialism Simulator as part of the Super Indie Game Lightning Round and the Bundle for Racial Justice and Equality.
I got it. It is a game about, I guess, balancing political choices and seeing if you can make a utopian society, or I'm probably sure backslide into fascism. Who knows? This is going to be one of those games that we're going to be a little bit more obvious up front about our own political leanings. I'm usually pretty quiet about them just because I don't want to upset people. But you know what? Screw that. Let's get going. Whew.
Simulation assistant. Oh, I like how they're a stag. I
Yep.
love stag. A cyber stag. Look at those.
Please stop wiggling back and forth. Thank you.
Welcome to the Democratic Socialism Simulator. Would you like to take a quick tutorial? Drag this card left or right to answer. Yes, please. Great! So this machine simulates the challenges that a socialist or social democratic government might face in the USA.
Why?
Well, if you are interested in status quo simulators, you might want to play literally any other game instead. But
Shots fired.
why the USA? Or okay, continue. At the time of this release, we see a political opening in the United States. Stay tuned for other versions.
Nope, quit. Just stop there. 2-minute video.
Wait, look at this Congress control. Time to next elections?
Yeah,
Wait, so there's money? What's the fist symbol?
that's probably unrest,
Power, unrest, yeah.
and I
okay.
don't know what that is.
Pollution.
Farts?
I don't know what that is. It looks like there's a factory.
Yeah,
with
that
clouds.
makes sense actually. That probably is pollution.
I don't know. We'll have to see.
I think that was actually something that this was
Oh, what's
brought
the
up.
music button? So it's just an on-off.
Yeah, it's just a
Interesting.
toggle.
Okay, so how do you play? You play as the President of the United States and the coalition behind him, her, or them.
Am
Yes.
I many people?
You are given the power of a whole governing body. It's just a way to streamline the user experience.
Not democratic then.
Yes, a single-player democracy is a contradiction in terms. Are you willing to tolerate it?
No.
Great, do we have to go through all that again?
All right.
Everyone, Waterbots here, and welcome to the Democratic Socialism Simulator. Take 7, let's go. Yes, please.
Let's see. Continue.
Okay.
Go on.
This machine will offer you semi-random proposals with 2 choices, like this one.
Nope.
That's the spirit. Some messages won't require any choice on your part, just like this one. Swipe either way.
Ah!
In the screen below, you'll see a model of the electorate. It's a collection of virtual voters. Look at them all. They're such tiny, cute little animals. The voters are positioned according to their approval. The closest ones will vote for you in the next elections. So what do they have? It looks like I see a cow, some deer. Ah! What you... Okay. Oh, I'm a virtual voter and I support this government. My top priorities are containing immigration, nationalism, white supremacy, workers' rights, job creation, unionization. Okay.
For a second, I thought this person's specific, like, priority is, like, I want white supremacy. And it's just like, oh gosh. I don't want to be confronted with that immediately.
Okay,
But
let's choose some other ones. So this one, like, security, military strength, fighting crime and terrorism, but tax cuts, small government, and austerity. Okay, so
I think
another,
we'll learn what these symbols specifically
another
mean.
mixture of them. Well, that one looks like security and military strength. That's the shield.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one is barring people. See how it's like a fence?
Oh, so that...
It's a twisted fence.
So this person is actually a white supremacist. Yay!
Okay, what are other...
I hate those people.
Economic growth, free market, and entrepreneurship, and then also tax cuts. So... Oh, this one, look at the cross with the grain. Tradition, Christianity, and rural life. Is everyone? Okay, let's see. Okay, this person does like world peace, internationalism, and global justice. Interesting. Workers' rights, job creation, and unionization. Interesting. Civil rights, social justice, anti-racism, feminism, LGBT rights, environmentalism, conservation, and sustainability. Welfare state, public service, universal health care, poverty relief. So we're starting to see what some of the major issues are being lumped into.
Mm-hmm.
What people tend to vote for as part of their...
This is like the most topical game right now. Like, holy shit, these two choices. We haven't even looked at them yet.
Oh, yeah.
Look at that. Right there.
Mm-hmm. I think we've just about seen all of them.
So you can see a couple of these guys move forward, a couple of these guys move back.
Oh, I see. So the closer you have people towards you, the
They're
more
more
likely
likely to
they are
vote
to
for
vote
you.
for you?
Yep.
Okay.
So we're going to be
This is
talking
the
about some of this
question.
stuff. This is the question that I was actually... I've been talking about this one for ages because I actually have like a 3-page thing of notes trying to get my thoughts together on what my answer would inevitably be if I ever had to talk about this, and boy howdy, I'm glad I prepared. But so you mind if I just take the lead on this one?
Sure.
Okay. So I've been thinking about this for a while. Years ago when Black Lives Matter first started, I was confused. Because yeah, duh. And then I heard people starting to echo the words, all lives matter. And I was like, well yeah, duh. And it didn't really ever feel like either were mutually exclusive, and I was confused why it was a point of contention. And I think it took me the longest time to figure this one out, because I do tend to think about the world from a very, very egalitarian perspective. Egalitarian being, heavily focused on equal rights for all, and not really taking race, gender, or sexual preference into account. Because, like, for me, as a cisgendered straight white guy, I pretty much I am as boring as can be when it comes to social disadvantages. And from my perspective, I straight up never saw any of these things, really. No, I did. I grew up around a lot of different places. My elementary school was very heavy on the Asian side of things, and my middle school was very heavy on the African American side of things. And then I moved up to Massachusetts, and it was pretty much exclusively white, and there were some inner city kids that had been brought out for better education and so on and so forth.
You were also living in a very rich part of town.
And yes, I was living in quite possibly the richest overall suburb outside of Boston. I'm sure there are more wealthy ones, but like in terms of public schools and so on and so forth, it was high up there. Not so many mansions, but like to get a house, you needed millions of dollars to live in this town. So very privileged, very insulated. And so for me, like, yeah, all lives matter. Everybody is equal. Let's move on. But the thing I've kind of come to realize for ages is by saying Black Lives Matter, it does not actually mean that no other lives matter. And it feels exclusionary because it inherently is. And I feel like that's kind of the fault in the message of everybody else has the knee-jerk reaction of I feel excluded. And I think that's part of the point. I've been around a lot of people specifically that have been excluded. And I guess I'm not even going to be playing too much of this game. I'm just going to be talking about my thoughts whenever it comes to these. And for you, they both mean the same thing, and they really do. But so I was talking to a YouTuber a long time ago. Back when I was started, I barely had 100 subscribers. And he was black. And he was talking about his difficulties getting into Let's Plays as a member of the black community. And he was talking about how everybody kind of looked down on him getting into the hobby. That, you know, most people weren't taking him seriously within his own, like, friend group, because it was a nerd hobby. It wasn't worth it. You know, go do something better with your life. Whereas you had a bunch of white people just diving into it, and it was awesome. And I never really thought of it before because, you know, it's just talking into a mic, playing over a video game. And, like, who cares what the color of your skin is? It's, you know, it truly is your character that matters. But the answer is no. There is socioeconomic issues that stand in your way. There are issues with your immediate culture that stand in your way. And that to say Black Lives Matter is not to say that no other lives matter. It's to reinforce that Black Lives Matter too. That there has been fairly systemic and regular offenses against certain minorities in the US. All minorities. Our society is built upon prejudices and kind of horrible racial ideologies that I think everybody just kind of pushes down. But, like, you all know the stereotypes, and I'm sure most people will just kind of, like, push them off and say, like, yeah, they don't matter, it's just a dumb joke. But the reality is, like, no, some of these things do matter. And, both...
it's also, it's been going on for hundreds of years too.
Yeah.
Even as late as I suppose the 1800s and such, you had the Greek and Italian and Irish immigrants coming over.
Oh no, that was even into the 1900s.
Early 1900s
Yeah.
as well. And so at that time they were oppressed and there was a prejudice against them as well. That's why you have whole sections of New York City that were very segregated, even
And still
amongst
are.
those groups.
And still are. Less so based on color of skin, but there is heavy segregation in multiple cities in the US. You don't notice it if you're in suburbia as much, but you kind of do. And it's one of those that, like, both within and without, in all respects, there's kind of been this pervasive and subversive ideation that Black lives don't matter as much. That, you know, they don't have as many advantages and they have a lot more obstacles that I myself will never ever experience. And that's tragic, and that's why the catchphrase? No, the slogan, there we go, of Black Lives Matter, it is not there to exclude everybody else, though it does, just based on the wording, but it is there to reinforce that they matter, not to say that other lives don't matter. And so, yes, all lives do matter, but right now, in this specific situation, you need to reinforce that everyone matters equally. And that is not... It is not a smooth, flat playing field. And we want it to be. And that's why Black Lives Matter.
Mm-hmm.
At least right now. Hopefully in 50 years, it will be a level playing field, and we won't need this slogan anymore.
But going back to this game, there's going to be there needs to be a lot of voting, a lot of issues to address poverty, to address healthcare, to address homelessness and rent control and environmental protections and corporate tax evasion and a whole host of things. We're probably going to encounter many of these issues, but a lot of these issues do contribute to people being incapable of affording and being able to elevate themselves and move up in the world. And that's also a key root to why there's this persistent suffering. And I suppose that this is why you have to go out there and vote. Go out there and find people who support these causes and have them calling the shots, because ultimately they're going to be able to enact the reforms that are required in order to remedy these issues. But in any case.
Yep. And I will say, before we go too far, it is okay to have complicated feelings on this matter. It is okay even to disagree, to feel like the arguments are hollow. I only ask that no matter what, everyone kind of goes into this sort of thing with an open mind and doesn't just go in guns blazing. Because I think one of the biggest problems that I run into with political discourse is actually staring us in the face right now. That we have a Boolean here. And I feel like too many things are reduced to swipe left, swipe right. You're with us, you're against us. Red party, blue party. The good guys, the bad guys. You know, Black Lives Matter, all lives matter. And so, do not feel shame or guilt for not understanding. Because it took me years. And that's part of the reason why I don't talk about this sort of thing very often. Because I want to make sure that I have all of my thoughts together and all of my thoughts organized before I dare speak about this sort of thing. And so, if you are kind of in the same position, and you do have complicated feelings on this matter and you want somebody to talk to, I'll try and make myself available, as long as it doesn't turn immediately into, you know, slinging snowflake terms left and right. Because the moment anybody starts insulting anybody else with, like, an insult like that, that's not discourse.
You can click on the individual voters to check their top issues and their approval. Many policies require funding. The yellow bar indicates your current budget surplus. It can go negative, too. Tax more and spend more.
The interesting thing is, I wish there was a third option here. Of both?
Well, I mean, obviously we can go into long discussions of who
we're barely
going
to play this game. I'm going to be honest. Like, this is just my platform to talk about my opinions, for once.
Right. But the taxing more is probably going to... Is it going to upset everyone, or...
Currently, it doesn't seem to.
Let's look. Like, what? Can you hover?
No one seems to give a dang.
So this is just influencing your money.
Yeah. You know what? I'll talk about every single one of these as we go by.
Okay, I want to actually get to the game where we have the different secretaries and people coming to present issues to you. We're still in the tutorial.
Yeah, true. But I was just gonna say, I was reading about the economic stimulus recently and about how you really do actually want to keep the money flowing instead of just, like, hoarding it. And part of the reason why you want to tax more is to keep the money moving. That for a lot of the people up top, and I'm talking up top, like 3 yachts up top, a lot of them will hold on to that money like, you know, like it's a life raft and they're drowning and it's wild. Whereas if you hand it to a lot of poor people, that money will actually probably go to bills, buying things, all sorts of stuff. So I'm going to say tax more, and this is probably not going to earn me any favors, but...
The central bar represents the people's power. Right now, it's empty. That's the problem you are trying to solve.
People's power?
A combination of economic equality, workers' organization, and citizens' engagement. All the good stuff. The gray bar represents the greenhouse gas emissions in the United States. Your goal is to reduce them to 0.
I like whoever made this game.
Some radical reforms require certain majority in Congress. This icon here indicates the minimum level of support you need. So, half. You can gain or lose Congress support at each election, or due to major events. As president, you can only be re-elected once. Midterm elections will occur halfway through each of your terms. That's it, more or less. Swipe left, swipe right, pave the road to socialism and such. Oh, and don't get demoralized if you fail. It may just be a bug in the simulator, or plain bad luck. Ready? This looks like a peacock.
Yep.
Real peacock.
Oh, this would be a dude.
Yep.
Congratulations, this is your first day as president. Have you chosen a theme for your inauguration speech?
Political revolution or hope?
Interesting. So, this one is divisive, but pushes a lot of people further forward or back. Whereas
Hope
this
is
one
universal.
brings everybody in.
I mean, it's kind of interesting. One is vague and one is specific.
Yeah.
If you think about it. I mean, hope is what everyone desires.
Yeah. I'm mixed on this one.
Because you think that if you don't have your platform spelled out, people are going to get disappointed later?
I feel like hope is too vague, and maybe part of it is because the first election I ever voted in,
Barack Obama
and that was
a
the
number of
first
other...
election I voted in, and I felt like hope was a very powerful message at this time. At the time, but it didn't change enough. So from like a gameplay perspective, hope, you know, look at that bonus. What does this give us? Who do we lose?
It looks like we lose the religious, economic, and...
Interesting.
Yeah. It's all religious and economic.
Yeah. So who are these people that don't care?
Well, that person was also supporting of a welfare state and public services.
Yeah. Okay. See, was Obama's era your first vote because of age, or no interest in voting before that? I was 18. I was 18 for 2 months prior to that election, and boy did I pay a lot of attention to it because...
I was not old enough to
yeah,
vote
Shell
in that
was not old
particular
enough.
election.
I voted in every major election that I could, but I only started doing midterms in 2014? Yeah, 2014 was the first year that I actually did midterms. I should have in 2010. And it wasn't until 2016 that I actually started doing primaries. Mainly just because when you're a dumb kid, everybody makes it sound like...
Oh, people are mentioning about the peacock business. Remember, NBC's logo is a peacock.
Yep.
Feathers display. That's fun.
Yeah, that is actually... That's clever. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
But no, when you're a kid, the only election that matters is the presidential election. You know, there are nebulous things like the House and the Senate. But at least when I went to school, no one really stressed the importance of primaries.
And also, for many people, it just seemed to be an issue of Republican or Democrat as well.
Yeah. And that's something I kind of hate.
And they voted more often than not with what their parents had traditionally
decided.
Absolutely.
And so, recently I've come to the conclusion that my way of thinking is actually totally backwards. Yeah, for your election, you only have 2 choices, random from the main party and random from the opposition. Is that for your full elections, or do you have, like, a primary system? I don't know what country you're in. But, like, recently, Oregon just had its primary, and as part of that, we got to have a say in what representatives were going up within our party.
And it was so nice because they had a whole booklet with everyone's stances printed out, and it's more information provided to every single citizen in the area than, say, any other state I've
For those of
been
you
in.
that don't know the American political process, there are 2 elections. There's primaries, and then there's the main elections.
It's kind of like you're voting on the finalists for who will ultimately be running.
If you think of it as a tournament bracket, you have, both parties have kind of their sub-primaries, which is their internal tournament. Whoever wins that goes on to the main election, and then whoever wins that gets the position. Full election, I'm from Singapore. Unfortunately, I do not know nearly enough about Singapore to respond to how your election works. But generally, if you feel like you don't have a good choice between whatever your potential candidates are, chances are there's either a local election or a primary or some kind of equivalent therein.
And primaries ensure that if you're dissatisfied with people that have been able to be incumbents and get reelected again and again, there is another option.
So actually, speaking of me getting politically active, I've only ever worked for one campaign, and it was my town's or my area's like state representative. I'm not entirely sure what position he was in, but effectively, one of my classmates' fathers was the incumbent and had been for like 30 years, and he wasn't a good one. He was kind of the classic middle-of-the-road guy, didn't do anything, enacted no change, effectively was a career politician with no actual change to his name, and that he just went into it because the money was good, I'm assuming. I'm assuming the money was good, considering his daughter was extremely stuck up and awful. I went to school with her, and she was not a good person. And so I was just randomly talking to another classmate, and she's like, yeah, I'm helping run the candidate, run the campaign for this other candidate. This, just kind of mild-mannered, nice dude that lived in the center of town that just said, you know what, I've had it with this incumbent. And we actually managed to drag him to victory. We did a lot of, canvassing and stuff. And I was not nearly as aggressive as a lot of these people were. But, if you feel like your candidates and your representatives are bad, chances are there's lower tier politics that you can get mildly involved in or at least vote in. And that actually is what sets the policy and the direction. Because if you just wait until the final election, then you're just stuck with 2 choices that you really didn't have much of a say in beforehand. And that can be a little rough for a lot of people. Because, yeah, sometimes you actually do feel like your 2 options are terrible. At which point I would say, well, vote for whichever is closest to your ideology, and then freaking vote in local elections next time.
And I like how chat's bringing up the issue of sometimes it seems like a contest of who has the most money, because they have more purchasing power when it comes to political ads, and
that is why we need to get a lot of money out of politics, because gosh,
But let's go back to the main issue here.
Yeah.
Are you going to be vague and talk about platitudes of hope, or are you going to discuss revolution, which is going to scare some people and embolden others?
I think I'm going to be decisive here. Consequences or not.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like platitudes are nice, but ultimately this is only going to mildly offset whatever decisions I'm going to make. Whereas I feel like no matter what, I'm never going to be able to convince some of these people in the back that my way is the right way. Without actual provable actions. And even then, there's a very real possibility that no matter how good I make things, they will still hate me.
Oh, 1 minute. Read what he's saying.
How would you like your inauguration ceremony to be? So if I make it lavish, everybody approves, but I lose money. If I make it humble, all the economic related people...
I think it should be humble because quite frankly, why spend money? We were looking at some statistics on how people in offices are given thousands and thousands of dollars.
Was it West Virginia got $40,000 to renovate their office? And the more I think about it, the more I realize that, if you're going to be there for, 10, 20 years, okay, I could almost understand that budget. But, 4 years? But, my entire office setup here, admittedly with consoles and equipment and whatnot, is easily
It's a couple $1,000s.
5-6 grand, if not more. And like, I have a fairly Spartan setup. I got one chair, one cheap couch.
Each individual piece of furniture it would be considered on the cheaper end, definitely.
And so
a lot of IKEA stuff. Let's just put it that way.
And so if I were trying to impress people by being like local government, I could kind of understand wanting to go the extra mile and actually have something nice, so you don't just look like your entire government is outfitted by IKEA. At the same time, 40,000 seems a little steep for me. I'd love to see a budget breakdown for that sort of thing.
Mhm.
Because I don't know. That's a bit much.
In any case, we're going with
Humble. Wonderful ceremony. Moving speech. Now we have to start working. So many proposals, so little time. Why the hell did Democrats have a donkey? I know donkeys are cute, but like, gosh, it's just not an attractive animal.
Yeah, I think it's maybe because they're hard workers. Like, maybe
I
they
guess.
chose the donkey or
It
the
makes
mule to...
sense, but I feel like, as far as branding goes, donkeys just aren't great. Like...
And elephants are large and majestic and such.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can say that donkeys are close relatives of the zebra. Then every animal can be... Nah, that's just... I don't know. I don't understand. They probably choose animals because it's something that people can identify with. Wasn't there also there was the bull moose party?
Yeah, there was the bull moose party.
Then originally, but I think there were rumors. Well, no, it wasn't a rumor. I don't know if it was Benjamin Franklin was trying to get the turkey to be the national bird, but then people were like, why would you choose a prey animal that people ultimately eat for Thanksgiving when you could choose the eagle?
Yeah, I feel like eagle and most birds would have to be like off limits if you were to rebrand a political party, just because like that's too much of a gimme for jingoism and you don't really want that.
Yeah, Teddy Roosevelt did start his own.
So
bull moose
donkey
party.
showed up because of Andrew Jackson and calling him a jackass, and he ran with it or something like that. Huh.
Wait, so it was used as an insult, but he decided to embrace it?
Yeah. That feels like a dumb reason to keep it after this long.
Oh well.
Yeah, oh well.
Okay, so we have a flamingo as the immigration advisor. Can we overturn the Muslim ban? It's kind of xenophobic and kind of unconstitutional.
Yep.
This is the press secretary again.
Having trouble connecting with the Christians, visit the Pope. He's a crypto leftist after all.
Wait, crypto? What?
Huh. I have never heard that term before.
What is a crypto leftist?
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna Google that one. I have mixed feelings about the current Pope. He seems better than most of the previous ones, but there's still a lot of What the hell is crypto leftist?
Well, I'm seeing crypto anarchism and crypto communism. What's crypto?
Probably related to...
Cryptographic software? What? This doesn't... No.
Yeah, usually when I hear leftist applied to anything, I'm assuming it's a insult.
What is crypto?
Secret support.
Secret supporter.
Yeah, so he's a secret supporter of more left-leaning policies, which to some degree I think I would agree with. He seems to be better than the previous couple. Not that I paid too much attention.
Are they
to
referring
popes.
to the modern pope or just
this is
speculative pope?
No, this is very much like only relevant to the last 4 years. But yeah, closet leftist. I wouldn't say he's a closet leftist. He's definitely spoken out about a bunch of stuff.
So it's interesting because ideally you don't want to intermingle church and state. It is interesting though because for centuries in Europe, the Pope and the clergy were kind of like they were advisors, and they were holding religion above the kings and queens' heads, saying that God granted them their monarchies and their divine right to rule and a whole bunch of other things. So, I mean, that's why you have Henry VIII creating the Church of England so that he could divorce his wives and no longer be beholden to the Pope and everything. And it's a messy bit of history. But I suppose, do you visit the Pope and try to get I assume it would be the like Roman Catholics and such to...
Yeah, I think my thing is, like, ultimately, I truly do believe religion should be a very separate thing from government, just because that is a very strongly opinionated and strongly organized series of opinions that should not have that much political sway, because it is... I'm not going to say it's too unified. It's too easy for people to close ranks.
It's also interesting because there are so many branches of, say, Christianity at this point, and they all hold different beliefs and even fight amongst themselves over what's right and what's wrong and such. It's...
Yeah. Flip side, I would say, is straight up, I see no reason why not to be friendly with all religious leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, ultimately religion is a part of people's lives.
If you go the no gods, no masters route, then you'd
It
probably
actually
put yourself
doesn't
very
hurt.
squarely with atheists and atheism and stuff. There's atheism, and then there's agnosticism and a whole bunch of other things.
So atheism is a rejection. Agnosticism is more or less saying we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I guess I'd be fine with visiting the Pope.
Because ultimately the Pope is going to be able to help enact change.
Yeah.
Within their own...
community, hopefully.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, gosh.
Oh. Which one?
We can Google these. Matthew 21:12-13.
Yeah. Wander and I both grew up with Christian families, and I don't have this memorized.
Okay, 12-13. Oh, I actually really like these.
Mm-hmm.
So I will fully admit I read the
is
Bible
this the
through a
one?
couple of times, but these are actually some of my favorite passages back
is
when
this
I
Jesus
bothered
at the
with
temple?
these. Yeah, so to the right, which is the one that
Can I read them out?
Yeah. So the one that makes the civil rights people happy is...
Jesus entered the temple courts and drove out all who were buying and selling there. He overturned the tables of the money changers and the benches of those selling doves. "It is written," he said to them, "My house will be called a house of prayer, but you are making it a den of robbers." The blind and the lame came to him at the temple, and he healed them. But when the chief priests and the teachers of the law saw the wonderful things he did, and the children shouting at the temple courts, "Hosanna to the Son of David," they were indignant. "Do you hear what these children are saying?" they asked him. "Yes," replied Jesus. "Have you never read, 'From the lips of children and infants you, Lord, have called forth your praise'?" And he left them and went out to the city of Bethany, where he spent the night.
So TLDR on that one. Effectively, Jesus goes in and it's like, why are y'all amassing wealth? This is not the place for it. And yeah, just remember, if you're ever wondering what Jesus would do, he overturned tables and chased people with whips. Jesus was kind of a crazy dude, but like, he's right here. Like, effectively, he's just saying, like, you should not be amassing wealth in religion because it's bad and it's toxic.
Let's look at Romans.
Okay, Romans 1:26-27. I do apologize that stuff like this, a lot of these things will come up, and I'm sure a lot of people will specifically be uncomfortable with this, but I think it is very important that all of these things get talked about without shying away from it. So, Romans 26-27. Because of this, God gave them over to shameful lusts. Even their women exchanged natural sexual relations for unnatural ones. In the same way, men also abandoned natural relations with women and were inflamed with lust for one another. Men committed shameful acts with other men and received in themselves the due penalty for their error.
So this is against...
Anti-gay.
Yeah. LGBTQ.
Whoop.
So, going with Matthew. All right.
Is it Christmas already? What are you going to say in your video message?
Oh, so it's Merry Christmas versus Happy Holidays. Happy Holidays would encompass Kwanzaa and Hanukkah
Yeah,
and
but
many of the holidays that would exist at the end of December.
yeah, I always hate this. Everybody should be allowed to say whatever they freaking please on the holidays. It's the freaking holidays.
To respect everyone, I tend to say happy holidays.
I once said, Merry Xmas or something like that.
Oh, Xmas?
And my uncle lost his mind.
Oh, no.
Which is hilarious because X stands for Jesus. That was the moment where I was like, okay, no sense talking to you.
And people are bringing up Yuletide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? War on Christmas issues. I never understood that. That was just a cheap thing to rile people up, and I get it. But it's one of those where it's like, it's the holidays. There's a billion different people out there with a billion different beliefs. Christmas should not be the only thing you say to people in December. And if you want to say Merry Christmas to me, I will smile and say Happy Holidays back to you.
I will only say Merry Christmas to people if I know that they specifically celebrate Christmas, but it's Happy Holidays.
I mean, at this point, Merry Christmas. Christmas is a capitalist holiday. It's barely religious at this point.
Yeah.
So,
I do admit, the things that I enjoyed most about Christmas was visiting with the family, opening up my gifts in the morning, most of which I already knew what they were because I had helped pick them out. And then, I do remember the services where we would sing Christmas songs, but that's just because I love singing. But beyond that, it was really, to me, spending time with family.
Merry capitalism. I've said that before, actually.
Mm.
And Christmas is just Saturnalia with a twist. Yep. I believe they... From what people were able to piece together of Jesus' actual life, he was born in, April or March or something silly. And then they specifically co-opted Saturnalia because a lot of the pagans were celebrating big holidays around then.
And that's why we decorate Christmas trees.
Yep, because that has nothing to do with Christianity and everything to do with pagan traditions. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with co-opting a holiday in that manner. I mean, there kind of is. It's a bit suspicious. But you know what? The message-ish? If you want to tie that to a holiday that everybody's already... celebrating so they don't have to shift their lives around. Okay, sure, whatever. But you have to remember the origins of it at the very least. Anyway, happy holidays.
A union leader, look at that. He's a beaver. He's a hard worker.
We can require corporations to gradually transfer up to 10% of their shares into a fund controlled by employees.
Oh, well, yeah, employees should have a stake.
Freaking sure. I'm notifying you that the Iraqi government is calling for all foreign troops to leave. They want us out.
I mean, the thing is... So removing ourselves, might cost a stabilization, but otherwise we'd be invaders.
Yeah,
and
we've been invaders for years.
Yep.
Of course, defense is a bald eagle. Yeah, of course.
Yep. I mean... That is the symbol of the country, and then also typically the symbol of the military with the stars and such.
Global policing is bad. Kind of probably, yeah.
Really, it's... I suppose if a country asks you on the behalf of themselves and their people, but...
I think my problem is, it's historically always been done poorly. And usually for ulterior motives of some kind, instead of actually, proper policing. And it involves a lot of just ignoring the actual root problems. Because, withdraw gradually, I guess. Yeah. There's a global policing if they ask, though. Also possibly.
But also,
though
I
for
don't
Iraq,
like,
it wasn't originally.
For this, I don't like the fact that it says, no, we call the shots. Because that is imposing yourself.
Yeah, that's a bit much.
Them.
Yeah, global policing by unilateral actors is bad, but cooperative action should be done. I like that. That's a good way of putting it. Because there are some governments that absolutely will just do horrible things to their minorities, for example. And more or less, if anybody even calls them out on it, they shoot all their journalists. But it's global policing, I think, is somewhat necessary just to make sure that people don't go full, like, euthanasia on to, like, keep power or do horrible things. But I feel like the way we've done it, at the very least, is absolutely terrible, and... ugh. Withdraw. Surely you're aware that leaving Iraq would jeopardize our presence in the whole region. ISIS might surge. Withdraw.
Well, look at what that did to money, but...
Yeah, we have a lot more money because we're not spending it on the military there anymore.
Civil rights leader. Oh, and is he like a Black Panther then?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, well, what does he say? I wonder, we have to read it out.
Listen, America was built on 200 years of slavery. The racial wealth gap keeps increasing. It's time for reparations.
Reparations.
I mean...
I'd like to know the specifics of what the reparations would be.
Because
I've
this
heard
one's
people...
a touchy subject, and I wish I had more people to talk to about this one. Mainly because I believe that, yeah, actually, we need something. I think the instinctual fear with the word reparations is effectively just, like, give money to minorities.
It's very difficult to quantify, because when slavery ended, the people that were freed and able to make their way in the world, they were left with a lot of disadvantages off the bat. And
so I feel like heavy social program.
But can I continue?
Yeah, sorry.
Even up through the 50s and 60s and such, I've been watching a number of documentaries and things about how neighborhoods were divided up into the suburbs and the towns that they are today, and how less desirable areas were kept very low income, and for the most part, the people that could afford to live there were already in these disadvantaged minority communities, and people that typically white were able to purchase into the better neighborhoods. And sometimes these neighborhoods back in the 50s were built specifically with stipulations on who could actually purchase there. And the banks, too, would be more likely to give loans to white families than minority families. And it just led to this cyclical issue of you have these rich neighborhoods that are, very homogenous. And because they have more money to put into their school system via their school taxes and such, they were able to consistently get better education, and they would be able to get the better jobs because of the better college education, and it kept things in perpetuity in that particular state. And so what reparations are trying to address is how even after decades of people being told, you can make your way up in the world, it's very difficult to if you're not given those resources very early on in your life.
Yeah. I think that's a good way of putting it. I think I just have that, like, weird feel of, like, whenever... I feel like reparations is always kind of the worst word for it. And that there would be a better way of phrasing it that...
And at the same time, too... think about currently with how everyone is off of work and the government is giving out $1,200. That doesn't pay.
Oh.
That doesn't pay for the rent and the medical care and a whole host of things that are. Like, people have been inside.
When was that sent out? March? It's June now. 3 months later.
Yeah, so it's been 3 months later, and that $1,200 is not enough.
If I didn't have this job, and that was all I had, we would have run out of money. Even if... So, say we immediately stopped paying all bills and all rent. We probably would have run out of money maybe halfway through April. Maybe a little later if we'd really stretched it by eating garbage. Just, to probably keep the power on and a couple other things.
I have friends that say that the only reason why they're able to pay all of their bills is because they're either living with their parents or in properties owned by their parents, or because they have unemployment currently.
But, like, I remember talking to our ex-roommate. Ex-roommate? Ex-roommate is kind of the wrong term. Previous roommate. and when we were working together at the like Nickelodeon satellite thing, she specifically was talking about how much of her money was going to student loans, and I was just like, holy shit, how do people even pay bills? I am way too privileged sometimes. Anyway, it won't pass no matter what, because we do not have enough Congress power. If you notice, our little meter is only 4 pips, and we need 5. So, one way or another, putting him off, sadly. Alright, I think with that, that's actually a pretty good stopping point. This is actually a fairly short and simple game, but because Shell and I are using this as kind of a low-key, high-key, it is a very blatant platform for Shell and I to talk about our beliefs about the world, and it is absolutely more of a soapbox game than actually anything that is a good simulator of what or how politics would actually work like, potentially. It's very idealistic, and at the same time, I kind of needed this. And yes, I know idealism only goes so far, but it is just very nice to talk about this sort of thing, I guess publicly for once. I definitely talk about this, not infrequently, in kind of low-key terms, and now it's nice to actually talk about stuff in a more upfront manner. And the game itself is cheap but charming. I think it's like $3 on Steam, which actually is a fairly fair price, considering what it is. But either way, I hope our opinions that we expressed are, for the most part, agreeable, if that makes sense. It's not one of those where I'm seeking other people's approval or even trying to avoid their disapproval, but it's one of those where I really do believe, like, a lot of my choices here are kind of for the good of everybody, and I'm sure that a lot of people are probably going to jump on me and yell at me for that sort of thing. And you know what? I'm going to welcome that to some degree. For a lot of these videos, we are going to get into a little bit more political topics. And I think it's one of those where it is important to have that dialogue. But I would ask that if you do decide to weigh in on this, that you should be polite and respectful to everybody. Not just, the people that share your views. Because ultimately, just yelling at each other isn't going to get much done ever. And truly, like, I don't want to see my comment section devolve into just sheer madness immediately. So, if you do want to compare or contrast, go for it. Do it. If you want to disagree, do it. Please be kind. Be good to each other. That's just kind of a rule across the board. But especially this, because I know it's going to attract more bad than I usually do. I would specifically request that. So, I guess with that, we have, I'm going to say like 4 more episodes after this. They're all going to be kind of long because this is podcasty, and truly, to some degree, this is not a game for gameplay's sake, so I'd rather have it run a little long so we can actually get back to the main games, and so I can get my opinions out a little faster. So, I guess with that, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.